Hello again, everyone, and welcome to the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, as always, joined by Joe Resinello. And once more, dear brothers and sisters, let us go into the breach on the Crusade channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com, the last live radio station standing. Remember to get in the chat room at the crusadechannel.com/chat. That is the only social media out there worth actually socializing in. And please be sure, wherever you find Joe and I on social media, Facebook, YouTube, Gab, wherever it is, like, subscribe, share, hit the little bell, do all that fun stuff, and help us out in any way you can. So, as always, we are very grateful to be here on the Crusade channel. You all need to become Founders Pass members. There's a lot of new releases coming out. Obviously, you have the King Dude, you have Rick Barrett, you have Kennedy Hall, okay? New to the Crusade channel, there's Kennedy Hall, Frontline with Joe and Joe. You really need to become a Founders Pass member. We couldn't emphasize that to you enough. And as far as also one final promo, remember, Joe and I, if you want to contribute to our success financially, please remember that we have a Patreon account at patreon.com/the frontline with Joe and Joe. So, Joe, not for anything. I went through. I was going through like we always do. Everybody out there at the Crusade Channel knows how we do things. We go through some stories and everything. It's it's so freaking depressing, and honestly, it's almost difficult to find stories. In other words, to talk about because a lot of it we've talked about before. Don't worry about it. The left still is serving it up, and Joe Biden in particular serves it up very, very well. He's a better server than I am, as a matter of fact. He serves up ribeyes better than me. But these guys, guys and gals, let's call them that, okay, on the left, Joe, they're living in a fantasy world. They're living in a complete fantasy world. I don't know. I don't know if they're deliberately lying. Many of them are for political power. Some are just there's something wrong with them. They're detached from reality. I don't think they listen to themselves speak. We're going to talk about that a little bit, all right? Because it's all about how they're detached from reality. They're like I said, they're living in a fantasy world. You have to look no further than Afghanistan. In other words, not only do we look like a bunch of children who don't know what they're doing. That's on one level, but on another level, Joe, the moral bankruptcy of the left is shining through in what's going on in Afghanistan. So we definitely have to talk about that. The other thing is this: talk about people who, Joe. There's people, Joe, who are detached from reality. There's people who are all sorts of things. Okay, but the thing that makes me angry more than anything else is when you're a scumbag liar. And it bothers me because these people at MSNBC, like Joy Reid and Dan Abdallah, okay, when they compare Christians to the Taliban, Joe, nothing makes me feel more unchristian towards them than that. Nothing. Okay. The hatred I have, and it's my sin. It's my sin. Because so I shouldn't allow it. Okay. But the hatred I have because we want to protect babies in the womb, we're the Taliban, we're going to get into it because we want to preserve the family as one man and one woman. We're the Taliban. That's as good as you could do, Joy Reid. Well, we're gonna get into her a little bit. And Bill Donahue basically wrote an article about that. Anthony Esolen, he's a troublemaker. We got to get him on the show one of these days. He's a troublemaker. Okay, dangerous thoughts about men and women. Can only imagine where that article goes. So we're going to be talking about that a little bit. Hungary is a good lesson for us, and Viktor Orban. And I've told you this before, Joe. The more that the media disparages somebody, vilifies somebody, the more I want to know about that person. And they savage Viktor Orban. Well, you know what? The more I read about Viktor Orban, the more I like him. So we're going to talk about that a little bit, and a little bit probably if we get to it. Knowing us, Joe, because we're big mouth. Knowing us, we won't get to it, but there is some resistance, and we want to give examples where, let's say, you want to call it unintended consequences of COVID, and the overreach by the left, whatever the case might be. Homeschooling, we have some numbers in on homeschooling.
They're big.
They're big, and they're pretty encouraging. So this should be a lively conversation here at the Crusade Channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com. One more final shout out to the King Dude, who we are always grateful for giving us a platform. So, Joe, with that, where are we headed?
Well, let's talk the Federalists, John Daniel Davidson. As you said, we're going to talk a little bit about Afghanistan. We have to do that, obviously. It's a debacle. But you also mentioned, Joe, that it exposed some of the bankruptcy, moral bankruptcy that is in the press. We're going to give some examples. So we'll just start off with Davison. He basically stated, and just give a little excerpt from his article. He said, the reports and images coming out of Afghanistan are dire. We've all seen them. As many as 10,000 American citizens are trapped behind enemy lines, stranded in and around Kabul in what amounts to a massive hostage crisis. Moreover, tens of thousands of Afghans who worked with the U.S. military are also trying to leave before the Taliban find them and their families. We saw some of that in the footage last week, and people clinging to a plane. I mean, you have to imagine the terror that you are basically faced with, that you're willing to cling to a plane. I mean, that's not going to work. I mean, any logical.
Joe, they have to be, everybody weighs risks, right? I mean, I don't mean to sound too graphic. The one poor kid died because he was in a part of the plane that a human being shouldn't be in, where the wheels are, okay? And unfortunately, God rest his soul, he got crushed, okay? That kid, teenage kid, must have weighed the cost and said, listen, better to take my shot out here and die here than it is if these guys get a hold of me, talking about the Taliban, and we're abandoning them. That's why this article is about exposing the moral bankruptcy of the left. Go ahead, Joe.
But even before we get into that, I mean, you could look at, like, which kind of even shocked me. And, while there were some ridiculous statements from the liberal media, and we're going to go through them a little bit, which basically, I mean, they're moronic statements. There were also instances in the liberal media. Stephanopoulos, I saw an interview on a clip on ABC News, and even Jake Tapper. Dude, they savaged Biden. I mean, I couldn't believe it. They savaged him.
The over under, we're in August, and the over under is about to kick in, that I predicted a few months ago. Again, my prediction is going to be off. They're getting ready to drop the hammer on this guy. When the media is turning against him, that probably means he served his purpose and they're ready to drop the hammer. When Stephanopoulos or Jake Tapper or any one of them start to say anything negative about Biden, he's on his way out. That's a guess, but I think it's a pretty good guess. They're not going to go out of their way to protect him.
I mean, Tucker had a little thing on that. He said it's just strange, how they're turning on, and it's possible. I'll tell you what, though. I mean, even on that note, I think that's a miscalculation if that's where they're going. For the simple fact, I don't think Kamala Harris can carry it. I think she has no skill set to be the president. And I'm not saying that she's dumb, but I'm saying, like, she just doesn't know how to communicate with people. Like, she's not a good communicator. You have to, even bumbling Joe Biden, he still has that, like, Scranton Joe going to an ice cream parlor or a pizzeria, talk to, like, the kid behind. Kamala Harris has none of that. There's nothing warm about her. I think it was a bad pick, to be truthful with you. I mean, they didn't have much to pick from outside of her, but I think, to be truthful with you, Elizabeth Warren would have been better than her. I mean, she just has no warmth to her. Zero. I don't think she can is my point, I guess, I'm trying to make is, if that's the route they're going, I think they're going to, it turns out to be worse than ever for them.
I can't. I mean, I can't see her if in fact, she steps in because they dropped the hammer on him through the 25th Amendment or whatever these cunning leftists do to get rid of Joe Biden, because that was their plan all along. We all know that. Okay. I don't know, like you said, first of all, in 2022, and again, I'm going to say this over and over again, I don't care who's tired of hearing it. The integrity of the elections needs to be straightened out. Okay. In other words, and as long as that's the case, the Democrats they're done in 2022. Now, again, it's the question we always ask: what kind of Republicans are we going to get? Hopefully, we get the fighting kind. Okay. But the thing is, they're going to get hammered. If she was to step in before 2022, she's going to have no power. Okay. And then she's just going to get shown the door in 2024, and they'll try to get somebody in there who they think could beat Trump. Because I mean, let's talk about it. It looks to us like Trump is running.
Oh, there's no doubt. I mean, win, lose, or draw, he's in it. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, he basically said that to what's her face, Bartolomo, in an interview. I can't say this because of the election laws, but you're going to be very happy. And then recently he just spoke in Alabama at a rally. There's no, because he sees blood in the water, obviously, because of the Afghanistan situation. I mean, he's running. There's no doubt in my mind that whether he wins or not is another story, but he's running.
Right.
But getting back to the Afghanistan, I mean, ultimately, my view, I don't fault him for leaving Afghanistan. Frankly, I'm a big proponent of Trump's basically no foreign wars. I mean, nation building hasn't worked for America. You can't change a culture. You can't think that you could Americanize a nation, particularly a nation that's so diametrically different from a culture perspective. So ultimately, I think it was a bad idea to escalate there. There's fault all around, from Bush to Obama, even to Trump. He could have gotten out quicker. I don't fault Biden for leaving. It's how he did it. We looked foolish. It's undeniable. It's sad. You know, what it also is telling is clearly one can conclude he's clueless. We could say possibly he didn't think things through. I mean, he obviously has people on the ground who's telling him. I mean, whether he listened or not is another story. But what it also shows is a coldness of heart. Joe, to leave Americans, people are in there. I mean, that to me, is that just the cost of doing business? That's why the optics of this are so bad.
I'm glad he's on the bad side of those optics, and there's no way around it. There is no way around it. Like you said about the plane and people clinging to the plane and images like that, and at the airport, no way around it. Biden, you're a liar. Everybody knows you're a liar. You're inept. And even if he did have all his faculties, you think he would have done anything different? Joe Biden's not some foreign policy savvy guy. Okay, he's always been a moron. If you want to see examples of that, go look at him questioning Clarence Thomas. There's a documentary out about Clarence Thomas, came out a few months ago, where Thomas now is commenting about Biden, then questioning Thomas about the moral law, and Thomas over there like this. He's like, yeah. That's what he's doing. That's what he's doing, because everybody knows Biden is a moron. So even with all his faculty, in fact, with all his faculties, it might have been worse. Now, do the big boys step in, okay, and straighten out this situation and get people out of there that need to be gotten out of there, or get some sort of, I don't know. I don't know. I am not a foreign policy expert. Then again, I don't pretend to be, like Joe Biden and Kamala and the rest of the elitists in the Democrat Party. But also too, Joe, did you hear about, like, in other words, they responded, like the best response was tweeting out a rainbow flag in front of one of our military bases? Did you hear about that?
I didn't, but it doesn't shock me. I mean, they're still banging on this woke nonsense. I mean, like I said, it's overshadowed by the incompetency. I mean, even I've seen some pretty horrendous memes. I have some friends in Europe that posted, some pretty horrendous memes. Italians, who not exactly are known for their military prowess. But I mean, it was a very sad display. It showed a lack of concern. You had France, you had the UK going in, getting their people out. There is no question in my mind that we will see a spike in terrorism throughout the world as a result of this. Whether that happens here is, to be seen. It's very possible. I mean, keep this in mind. Our southern border is open. It's not that difficult. If someone wants to come through the southern border to do so, people are doing it in the tens of thousands. So I think it was very irresponsible. Places like France and England have issues with terrorism. They've had a lot of problems. I think I would not be surprised if we see spikes there. But again, it shows the coldness of heart of this administration. And that's why I think the American people are really turned off by it. I mean, remember Benghazi, that was one individual, and the optics of that were horrendous. But this is something much, much, much bigger. If you ask me, you abandoned 10,000 Americans, 10,000. You know, basically, you didn't have any contingency plan to get them out before you pulled out. I mean, not for nothing. That should have been the first thing you thought about. And
Right.
by not doing it, it just shows who you are. And again, that's why I don't think people are going to forget about this. They think that they are going to, but it's going to come up. It was a national embarrassment, and it's a mar on the United States of America.
Really is. And you know,